Do you know that less than 15% of the books published each year by traditional publishers are by people of color? Well, on Girls Talk Books, we dive into the heart of the publishing industry, tackling the issues of diversity, representation, and access while celebrating the authors and trailblazers who are breaking barriers and making a difference. Whether you're an aspiring author, a publishing pro, or just love a great story, this is your space. So grab your notebook, your favorite drink, and let's turn your publishing dreams into reality. This is Girls Talk Books, where your voice matters. Let's go. Kids carry phones around every day, whether scrolling through TikTok, posting clips on Instagram, or doom scrolling on Reddit. They're inundated with so much media from all around the world. But how do you help them realize they have stories to share and all the tools they need are right in their own pocket? That's the mission of Mosaic Film Experience, founded by Skot Welch. The Mosaic Film Experience is a high school and college level film and interactive media program focused on creativity, collaboration, and career preparedness through the art of mobile filmmaking. Scott has been leading the program for nearly 20 years, involving it from a local initiative in Grand Rapids, Michigan, to a national program in partnership with the Paul Newman Foundation. His book, 100 Ways to Enjoy Mosaic, helps children and adults discover new ideas to build diverse communities in their own backyard. Let's welcome Skot Welch. So Scott, today we're here with Skot Welch, who is the founder and president of Global Bridge Builders.
Yes.
So in addition to you writing several books, you're also a leader in the industry in diversity and inclusion.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And so let's talk a little bit about your life, how we met actually through Mosaic Film Festival project that you had.
Right.
And if you guys don't know about that, that helps young people learn about how to use media to tell stories. Mm-hmm. And some of our Merge State Explorer girls took part, and they interviewed some of the amazing celebrities who came as judges a few years ago.
Yep.
So now tell us a little bit about you, and then merge into the Mosaic Film Festival project, and then talk about.
Let me say, I was born and raised in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Okay.
Not born here, not necessarily raised here, but born here, and then from a family that has a lot of educators and a lot of different folks, a lot of very strong volunteer, and a lot of people that start things around here.
Okay.
And then we moved to Korea when I was 8 years old. We did that for 2 years.
Because your dad was in the military.
Was in the service, yeah. My stepdad was. And so my mom and stepdad said, well, we're going to move to Korea. I didn't even know where that was.
Right.
But we did that for 2 years.
Okay.
Came back.
Well, tell us a little bit about Korea, because when I heard the podcast, you said that you were your stepfather purposely moved you to the village.
Yeah, we didn't. Yeah, and I think that is unique. We didn't live on the base, right? It was Camp Casey, which is 2nd Medical Battalion.
Okay.
But we didn't live on the base. We lived in the village with everybody else, and I was the only African American. No, I was the only American kid.
Wow.
In the entire village. There was no other American kids.
Wow.
And so it was considered a hardship tour. So you brought your family if you wanted to. And so my parents had the foresight to say, you know what, we're not going to do this in a traditional way. And so I lived in the village. Wow. We lived in the village with Adashi and everybody else. And I would help with the kimchi and go to the stores. And I mean, it was great because me being the only American kid, on top of being African American, and being what they called me a Skoshi Soul Brother Number Hana, which was little soul brother number 1.
Okay.
I mean, I had all kinds of privileges just because I was unique to that area.
Wow.
And so, free taxi rides, and when I'd step up in a restaurant, I'd just eat because I wanted to. I mean, it was great.
Wow.
I mean, I had a fabulous
And you're about
time.
how old about that?
It was 8 to 10.
Okay.
And then, so that was amazing. Then we moved to Hinesville, Georgia. I think it's Fort Stewart. Yeah, Fort Stewart. Moved to Hinesville, Georgia, which is in the way back woods of Georgia.
Okay.
Then moved to Augusta, Georgia, which is Fort Gordon. That was very prominent base. That's where I met James Brown for the first time, which was really cool because he dated a lady that was above us in the apartment complex. I saw him all the time.
What?
Yeah, and he'd always give me albums. And
You still
so,
have them?
maybe someplace I do, but I mean, I
Okay.
knew who I was meeting though. Yeah, I
Wow.
was like, that's a legend right there.
Right.
So moved to Augusta, Georgia,
Okay.
lived there from fifth grade to seventh grade, and then moved back to Grand Rapids.
Okay.
And then eighth grade through 10th, and then went to Europe for summer with music,
Mm.
and then came back
Okay.
and then finished high school and then went to Up With People for a year.
Mm.
That was a global tour of like musical Peace Corps, I guess I kind of
Right.
call it,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Did that for a year. That was 98 host families that would live around the world that I stayed with students from around the world. So it was a lot of different cultural things there.
Mm-hmm.
And then came back, went to Albion College, got my undergrad there, and then interned in New York City for a semester, worked for a casting agency, and then did not take the job they offered for in a casting agency in Los Angeles. Just didn't want to do that because I saw the industry. It didn't interest me that much after I kind of saw the ins and outs of it. I was like, yeah, that's okay, but it just didn't resonate. And then, after that, graduated from college, and then got involved in advertising. Worked at an agency, and then just from there, it was kind of corporate stuff.
Wow.
And then got my master's. So
And that's great because you actually, one of the positions that you had started by you just going in asking someone.
True.
And this is a lesson for especially young people. Be curious. Like you
Yes.
never know what people are doing.
Yes.
Don't be afraid to ask or be adventurous. So tell us a little bit about when you went into a certain place and asked what
Yeah.
they did and what
Yeah.
ended up happening.
So actually, I started a company, Generations Products, and it didn't work. We raised over $1 million in capital.
Wow.
And now I know so much more, right? I was like, because I've always been good at that. I'm like, let's raise some cash, let's hire staff, and we launched businesses, right? And so we launched the business, and the business didn't work. It was just burning through cash so much. So we were like, okay, you know what? We're going to actually shut this down. So we had to make the decision to shut it down. But in one of my final meetings, I was going to meet with the post office in their marketing division. And on the way out, I looked to my left and there was like this candy machine. And I rarely do that, but I was like, okay. And I looked to my right and there was a kind of a sign of a company in this office building. And I'd been working in diversity, teaching it on university level for a couple of years, but I hadn't really hit my stride yet.
Okay.
And so I knew that my student responses, the college students really liked the way I approached it. I didn't know I could really make money at it though, right? So I saw the firm and I literally walked into their office and I said, "Hey, what do you guys do? Because you got diversity in your corporate name."
Right.
They said, "We work with organizations and we work around diversity management." And I was like, okay. And I right there, I think I just said, "Hey, can I come back and volunteer?" And they were like, "Volunteer? Like this is a for-profit organization."
Right.
I said, "Yeah, I want to see what you do." And so I literally spent maybe 10 to 12 hours a week there for about 6 weeks. And then one of the partners, she was on maternity leave and decided she didn't want to come back. And it's funny because we're still really good friends. But they said, she's not returning. Would you take over her work? Would you take over one of her aerospace accounts?
Wow.
I'm like, yeah, you're going to teach workplace violence. I'm like, sure, okay, I'll teach it.
Wow.
And I went to the organization and taught. It was supposed to be 6 more months in the contract. It ended up being 5 years
Wow.
contract, and I actually ended up being one of the owners of the company. That was maybe 5 years down the line because I came and I began to start new products and get new products, done and expand the business and go into particular fields. And so I'm like, hey, and that actually, when I left that firm, I started how did that work? I was hired by a magazine in New Jersey that was around diversity. That's where I worked with all the Fortune 500, the bigger companies and Silicon Valley. And I came back and said, if I can do it for these massive brands, I can start my own company.
Right.
Because the advice that I was giving, they were doing, and they were
saw it
getting
working.
results.
Right.
Yeah. So, and that's when I started Global Bridge Builders. And so that's literally, Global Bridge Builders started 2005. So it's 20 years now.
And who do you work with? Who are your clients?
We work all over the planet. We work with organizations in food distribution. We work in healthcare. We work in entertainment. We work in financial services. We work in the legal profession.
Wow.
We work in different countries too. I have clients that have 52 locations and 48,000 employees, and we're starting a whole office in Namibia, which is just above Southern Africa.
Right.
And doing that because they've got some of the same opportunities there. So yeah, I mean, I've been doing it now for a while, got some great team members.
Okay.
And we really help an organization become healthier. It's funny because I think DE&I, the one of the parts where I understand where it is under attack is because really a lot of the organizations that backed up from it, they aren't, to me, their commitment, though the lack of commitment shows because it shows that they just had a diversity program.
Right.
And we don't build those. We build processes, and the processes connect to your business strategy, and your business strategy causes you to increase your revenue. So we come at it with a very, very different, our focus is processes. Okay. We do everything from supply chain and all different parts of the organization. So yeah, I mean, it's been good for us, you know.
But it's not just you're teaching DEI or
our training is like 1/5 or 1/6 of what we do. It's actually 4 steps into all the other stuff we do.
Okay.
So yeah, but
so you're working on the whole culture of the organization.
Yeah, and all there. I always tell folks if you don't get an ROI on DE&I, you're not doing it right. So because remember, I worked with publicly traded companies on Wall Street, and so it was like nanoseconds. And so my orientation around DE&I is literally driving revenue. And so I don't go in there to do the cute stuff.
Right.
Like we go in there, we're like, okay, we need to fix this, do this. We're going to look at your supply chain, who you're buying from, your policies, and I mean, everything.
Wow.
And that's what makes it fun.
Right.
But it also, it makes where our clients, they've not been affected by the pushback because it's embedded in their business.
And I think that's what's been challenging because they're like, we're getting rid of all this DEI, but it's like...
It's because they can.
Right.
It's like it was over on the side anyway, so it's easy to if it was just like this separate thing, it's easy to lop it off. But if it's embedded in your strategic plan, if it's embedded in everything you do, you can't. I always tell folks it's like trying to separate water from wet. That's the goal. And that's what makes it really, it's like, why would you if it's increasing your business, increasing your employee retention, increasing your employee recruitment?
And I don't get it because a lot of people feel like, oh, we don't need this anymore.
Yeah.
And because they didn't really want it anyway, their mind wasn't open. It's kind of like exercise.
Yes.
The people who need it
the
most don't want to do it.
Yeah, I know.
Yes. And the people who don't need it, they're in the gym working out.
Listen, you better.
Right.
You got to commit to it.
Because you know it's going to make you healthy. And that's the whole thing. And so you've written several books.
Yes.
But what I want to talk a little bit more about is your whole life has been a mosaic. If you think about it, a mosaic with, international experiences, a mosaic with the arts.
Yes.
And, your book, 101 Mosaic, doesn't have to necessarily mean your Mosaic Film Festival project.
Right, it's different.
But it's a little different. Tell us a little bit about this book and why you wrote it, because it was one of your first books.
Yeah, it's one of the first books that actually came out of a lot of the books I write, they come out of a problem or someone asked me a question. And so it was a client that we had that was a large insurance company. And the head of administration there, the CAO, she asked me, she said, we're going to be launching this diversity initiative with Global Bridge Builders, but is there kind of like a what to do next? There's got to be a book out there. And I said, you know what? I'm sure there is. Of course. Right. And I went and queried the marketplace and I couldn't find anything. And I said, guess what? I can't find a book. And she looked, she said, I can't find any. I said, you know what? Let's just launch it, because we worked together for 3 or 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
But that was the fruit of that. So I was like, I want to write one. I just want to write one. So I wrote one. A publisher out of San Francisco found me and said, let's put it out there. And it really, what it is, it's when people, it's 101 ways to enjoy the mosaic. The focus is just 101 things you can do next, right? And it's very I would say it's easily resourced, but these can have profound impact on your life, right? It's great for individuals, it's great for teams. So a lot of our clients, they buy them by the cases because it's a great discussion starter,
Right.
right?
Because I like this. It says sister to sister.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that. That's not way number 9.
That's way number 9. I forgot that I wrote this book a while. Let me see. So, in case you've just joined the program, already in progress, our world has gone global. The projects and services we use, as well as we ourselves, travel the seas more efficiently and faster than ever before, and often at will. And so, I talk about our sister city program that's based here, with several countries, but with the God District specifically, I'm just thinking that because we were in Ghana in January. And it's just, I try to tell folks that there are so many different things that we can do together, right? And so Sister City is one of those amazing programs
Right.
that's out of Washington, D.C. We have also the city of Zapopan Mosaic Film Experiences work with those kids. And it's just a great way to connect with other communities and connect communities together to work together to build communities.
So this book is not for me as an individual. It's for my company. And we were saying, what are some things that we can do together?
It's both and, because
Okay.
if a person just wants to say, I just want to broaden my landscape,
Right.
it's a great book for that.
Because I'm seeing number 44. Go to your local store instead of a big box store.
That's right.
So just different things that you can do. World rhythms.
Yeah.
Music lover, finding local music.
Yes.
Cultural music in your community.
Yeah, it's just a way to get people oriented. A lot of folks, they'll say, okay, I don't know what to do, or what do I do next? And so I wrote that book to just help them know what to do next.
Right.
And I wanted to make it fun. I wanted to give them a resource. Wanted to write some of my own stories in there, just to give them a way to kind of branch out and build their landscape a bit more.
Right.
So
And you have the word mosaic. Mosaic seems to be a favorite word for you.
it is,
Because,
yes.
why is mosaic so important to you, that word?
It represents to me just a collective of community, right? And it represents every tribe, every nation, every language. And so mosaic, it's the point for me. It's like wherever I go, I want to see the mosaic.
Right.
And where I've lived, I've seen the mosaic. That's where I enjoy those rooms the most. Where there's people from all different countries and stuff, because that's what I was raised in.
Right.
And I know that also for organizations, a mosaic actually leads to greater levels of innovation, right? So whether it be this book, whether it be the mosaic film experience for kids, it captures the spirit of what I'm trying to get at in terms of people connecting with each other across whatever these man-made or these manufactured lines are. I always tell folks if we are vertical, if we live a vertical life, it's going to be a much more it's going to be a room without air, right? It's going to be less innovative, less fun, and it's going to be a lot less rich. But if we live a life that is horizontal and we're connecting with community folks all the time and just different people. When I say community too, like I had a meeting this morning before this interview with my people in Namibia, and just talking to them about, okay, what are next steps? And so that's part of the family too. And so when we travel to different parts of the world, I look for the mosaic. I look for those audiences. Now, I love being in rooms, for instance. There are times when I love being in rooms where just African Americans are there. And I'll talk to us and we can share and go back and forth. And I love my history, my culture, all that, right? And then I'm like, okay, so let's take this amazing community and let's have some other conversations. Like, how are we going to do that? Because we don't live and we don't exist in a vacuum.
So one of the projects you work on is with the symphony, with the mosaic.
Yes.
So that's another project.
That's another project. So it was actually initially called Young, Gifted, and Black, and I was on the symphony board for probably 9 years. And I said, I get what we're trying to do, and it was good. I said, now what about mosaic scholars? And this is where I said, it's so true that we have these amazing young Black kids that they need. If some of them cannot afford private lessons, of course, that scholarship, which was there way before me, did that. I said, but to me, sometimes when I see a kid that can't afford it, I see a kid that can't afford it. Sometimes they're Latino, sometimes they're Native American, sometimes they're white.
Right.
And I just said, what? Because they were looking for, how can we branch it out? And I said, well, what if we just looked at it as mosaic? Of course, it's going to go to kids that might have maybe be more economically challenged, but also it's just like Mosaic Film Experience. We award the kids that have it's based upon your story, and we don't exclude the kids. If they're public school kids, sometimes they're the last ones, right?
Right.
That's why we bring the best people to them.
Right.
And sometimes those kids, they may not be African American, but I'm like, all of them are our kids.
Right.
And so we gotta somehow help. And so that's how the scholarship came about, the renaming of it. Not it. It was, like I said, it predated me. But then Mosaic here, the book, and then Mosaic Film Experience, and then just Mosaic in general. That's just kind of how I do things.
Right.
Yeah. And musically as well. I mean, so.
And I love that fact about you, because you're always looking at, how do I partner with other people? How do I bring other people into this
Yes.
as a community to collaborate?
Yes.
Because all of us have different strengths, and stories,
Exactly,
and
right.
it makes our mosaic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So people who are challenged with maybe not getting outside of their comfort zone.
Yeah.
What is, you have this book of different ideas, but just tell us a little bit, maybe one tip for someone to
I tell
how do
folks
you-
it's like fun. It's some fun things like watch a movie with the subtitles on, right? Or watch a movie that's not in your first language. Some people have to do it all the time, and particularly sometimes Americans, we don't have to. So I'm like, okay, turn the sound off and just watch it with subtitles, right? Or put it in the language and then, just watch the film, right? That's one way, is learning that. I tell folks that there are probably 3 cultural hacks I've learned to when you travel someplace. The first things that I do that accelerate my learning in that particular country is I look at the visual arts. I want to find out kind of what informs their palette, right? The music, rather the colors they use. If I'm in more of an arid region, I'm probably going to see more blues and tans because of sands and deserts. If I'm more tropical, I'm going to see deep, blushes of purple and things like that. So I love going into the artistic world, the visually artistic world, and seeing what they have. The second hack I have is I love going to the different restaurants. I want to find out, what do they use? If it's more towards the ocean, you're going to have more fish, right? If it's, when I was in India, you're not going to have any cow because, so it's more vegetarian. And so culture and their food tells a story, and the history. And then finally, I love music. And when I hear music, I mean, I've got artists that are my favorite. I don't know. I have to put their music through a translator to hear, because I don't understand their language. I just know that I like that sound.
the sound.
And so I always say music, visual arts, and food are just great cultural hacks. So we can't live at Applebee's.
See?
Right? We can't live at Chili's.
Right.
We got to go, I was just in New Orleans yesterday. And I mean, my goodness, it's just this amalgamation of all these beautiful cultures. That food is, their food game in New Orleans is just like, are you kidding me? It's so amazing.
Wow.
And the people there are so sweet. I'm just like, everybody that helped us, just, and so it's those kind of hacks, right? You want to find out what's important to the culture, and you want to value it as well.
Right.
And I never go into a place thinking I'm going to necessarily tell them anything or fix them. First thing I do is go in and I listen, and then I learn, and then I can actually bounce that up against my experience, and then maybe I can contribute.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And that's mosaic. Like that
Yeah.
is mosaic in life, and how we should learn from that. And I think the word diversity and inclusion is maybe a bad word for people, but if we say mosaic, live a mosaic life,
Yeah.
an inclusive life, a life that includes other people's cultures and languages, and I just love the fact, that's why I wanted to talk to you, because your whole life represents mosaic and everything that you do in the community, and then with your books and your work. So that's
Yes.
kind of why I wanted to feature you
Thank you.
on Girls Talk Books, because you're doing some great work here in Grand Rapids community, and I see
Yes.
it, and I just wanted to celebrate you and
Thank
thank you and
you.
honor you for all you do. So what we do with all of our authors, we try to talk to them about their once upon a time, because
Yes.
life, is a journey.
Yes, true.
And sometimes when you get to become an author, you're able to kind of wrap up that journey in a nutshell.
Yes.
So let's wrap up your once upon a time
Okay.
journey.
What are the questions?
So once upon a time, there was a little boy who...
So the once upon a time, there's a little boy who, instead of taking a security blanket, a physical blanket to school every day, took a 45 record. That was my security blanket.
Wow.
I had to have a 45 record with me every day.
Wow.
Right? I wanted music around me at all times.
And because of that record,
it was all, I've always been fascinated with music. And my kids are too. Like, my daughter's one of the bigger music influencers in the world now.
Wow.
I mean, just because that's how I went to New Orleans. She paid for it through one of her sponsorships.
Wow.
It's so music's just always, I was raised in music. So yesterday, the guys drive me to the airport, and I'm like, that's Gil Scott-Heron. He's like, yeah, man. I said, dude, I was raised with good music.
Right.
And so,
and because of that,
yeah. And because of that, to me, I love the arts. I love music. I love what music does. I say there's no defense against a good melody, right? And so, yeah, because of that, music is everywhere, and I use music as a bridge.
I love it. I love it. Well, that's it. I love it. That's the story. Once upon a time, music influenced your life, and you use that music as a bridge.
Yeah, truly.
All right. I love it. Well, thank you.
Thanks, Sonia.
All right. Oh, and we didn't ask you what books you read as a child. What were some of the books that influenced you?
You know what? It's funny. One of the books the first one comes to mind. My mom, I read the Boxcar Children. I remember that book because I would read it.
Okay.
And it was just one of those books, kids that lived in this boxcar and
Right.
they raised each other and stuff. I remember that book, but I was like, the Boxcar Children. That's one of the books. I mean, I read a lot, but for some reason that one stands out.
Wow.
So,
and then just really quickly, when you were a kid in Korea, what is something that you learned about community, being in a different culture, that you learned and you still kept that to this day?
You don't need to speak the same language to connect with people. I mean, I learned over time, I learned Korean, and even then just enough to be dangerous. And they would learn just enough English to be dangerous, but that wasn't how we actually built community. We built community through food and me smiling or them smiling and me drawing pictures with your hands or whatever. We didn't need the language. The language for us wasn't the spoken language. It was just it was emotion. It was when when someone's being friendly towards you, it, right? And in the food, when they would deliver the food to our house, or I'd go down to the restaurant, all those things translate. And so whenever I go to a country, I don't have to speak the language. I will learn what I can, right? But that's not the barrier. That's not going to keep me from appreciating what that community, what that culture has.
Right. And I think as Black people, we do have a fear of traveling because but nowadays with phones, you can literally
really can
translate, right there on the spot.
Yeah, you just translate. There's no excuse to be culturally ignorant anymore.
Exactly.
I mean, with YouTube and all these different shows and stuff, I'm like, come on, y'all. We can do better.
We
so
can do it.
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
Can do it. So, Scott, now that we're wrapping up, tell us a little bit more about how our viewers can learn more about you and what you do.
They can go to globalbridgebuilders.com. So globalbridgebuilders.com is an address for my consulting. Mosaic Film Experience is the educational initiative, and then from there, I think some of the different books and things are on the Global Bridge Builders site.
Right.
And then for that, and then for Mosaic Film Experience, it's a world in and of itself.
Right.
So they go to Mosaic Film Experience and they'll see all the different things that are happening there.
And so as we wrap up, the next big thing we always ask what you're doing. The Mosaic Film Experience is partnering with the Paul Newman Foundation, which is making it more of a national project. So tell us a little bit about that. And
we were. So I was doing some consulting work with Johns Hopkins, and so I was in Virginia for 3 days working with folks from the CDC and different folks around public health and the perception of public health and belonging. And so, but at the evening dinner, the lady I sat next to ended up being, she wasn't at the time, but she ended up being the program officer for Newman's Own Foundation.
Wow.
So she called me about 6 months later. She said, I want to know more about that. Here's my new position. And would you be interested in doing something, trying to do something nationally?
Wow.
So I got my team involved, and it's launched now. And the final, let me see. The submission of films closed April the 17th. And then the winners, we take 10 winners plus one to Los Angeles.
Wow.
And they get cash prizes too. But then we're going to actually screen their films at the Motion Picture Academy.
Wow.
Because they're one of our board of advisors, is the Oscar Museum is one of our advisors now too. So, so we're going to go and have fun. We're going to have people coming from the industry, talk to them about some of the films they've worked on and just the industry that you can do. And then right now we're planning to do a Mosaic film experience in Windhoek, Namibia. So that's next year. And that'll be with the former First Lady and her philanthropic and youth work. So we're going to do that there. That should be near the fall of next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited for you because I remember when it started with the
Right?
kids
And
years
that's
ago,
something.
and now
They're
it's
14 years old now.
wow.
Yep.
So do you have any last words for some of our?
Well, no, I would
guests?
I would just tell folks if they're, they want to publish something, I would just say first start writing. And every book that I've written, it's interesting. It just started out as journal entries, and then I would just write, and then a publisher would approach me and say, "Hey, I like this. Would you do more?" And they would ask me, "What are you working on?" And I would that's how this got started. That's how my other books, all of them. But first write. And like when Mosaic Film Experience, we bring in the folks from, be it Netflix or Black Panther or some other, production companies, they'll just say the first thing you got to do is just make film. Just get on your phone and just start telling stories. And I think that's really kind of the first step for anything. It's just start, and don't wait for all the conditions to be perfect because they never will be. You just have to start, and you don't have to ask for permission to do it. Just go.
I love it. And that's what you do with the Mosaic film with the kids, and they just use what they have as a phone.
Just use what they have.
And then the world opens up to them. So.
That was Skot Welch, the founder of the Mosaic Film Experience and the author of 101 Ways to Enjoy the Mosaic. To learn more about Skot and the Mosaic Film Experience, visit mosaicfilmexperience.com. This episode was hosted by me, Sonia Hollins, and produced by M2 McMillan Media. Are you an author with an amazing story to share? Or do you work in the publishing industry with insight that can inspire others? Well, we want you on Girls Talk Books, where voices matter. Or are you an aspiring author with a story to tell? Well, we can help with that too. Visit girlstalkbooks.com to learn more.